Hello, Salem, and welcome to CC Media Presents Our Community Matters. I'm your host, Clark Hilton. We're glad you're with us. It's summer in Oregon and wildfire season is here, but it's not a natural disaster that only happens far off in unpopulated areas. In 2020, an especially destructive year for Oregon, the Salem fire forced large-scale evacuations across Marion County. That red midday sky, the ash floating along I-5, it's impossible to forget. More and more over recent years, the heavily populated parts of the state experience a wildfire season regularly, with hazy weather conditions and poor air quality. Last year, wildfires knocked on our door in late August with the Liberty Fire, which led to a Level 3 evacuation for residents living west of South Liberty Road and South Jory Hill Road. The year before, it was the Vita Springs Fire in South Salem, burning up more than 160 acres and forcing the evacuation of 100-plus single-family homes. That's too close for comfort. But there are steps homeowners can take to protect their properties and make their homes more resilient to the threat of wildfires. It's called home hardening. And to help us with this today, we have Joe Hutchinson, Emergency Manager with the City of Salem, and Deputy Chief Brian Carrara with the City of Salem. Gentlemen, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Let's jump right into this. Can you explain what home hardening is and its importance?
Yeah, I'll take it if you're okay with this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, home hardening is the fact of taking your home and making it more fire resistant, right? So as wildfires are coming or approaching your home, you want to be able to protect your home by preparing your property so it has less of a chance for catching on fire, or less for the chance of fire to come to you. So, you want to look at your landscaping. You want to set your landscaping up for different zones. So, as a wildfire burns to you, you want to basically prepare that landscaping so it doesn't burn and doesn't burn as fast. And then you want to set your home up, roofs, windows, siding, decks, and so forth, and make sure it's more fire resistant so your home does not catch on fire, or to hopefully prevent it from doing that.
Okay. Direct flames, radiant heat, flying embers, I know they're all a danger in a wildfire situation. How do homes typically ignite?
Yeah, I would say direct flame is a really good possibility for that happening. For instance, embers, flying embers. If you don't have under your eaves good bird blocking set up with meshing in front of that, the embers can get in under the eave into the attic space, and from there they can ignite the insulation or anything you may have in the attic stored. Same for under decks, same kind of thing. Under the decks, you want to make sure you have a good space secured with meshing something so the embers can't get up under that as well. As far as radiant heat, a lot of folks put firewood right up against their home, or other flammable items up against their house. And if the heat's hot enough, it will indeed ignite the dry wood, if you will. Things like that.
On top of that, we talked about roofing materials, right? So with those flying embers, every home has vents. So if you don't look for and don't put something over those vents, that's a direct access to your home for those embers to go right down those vents and to light your home on fire from the inside out. So, and most people don't even think about that.
Yeah.
It's really, really important to really prepare your home, especially when you live in wildfire-prone areas and where you're surrounded by vegetation and brush and large trees.
Yeah. What type of long-range planning or modifications then are important to house hardening? Specifically, like Brian, you'd mentioned, as it relates to things like roofing and windows and doors and decks.
Well, if you look at what happened in Detroit, right? A lot of the homes around the city of Detroit burnt down. So, and what they are doing now is, as they're rebuilding those homes, the first thing that's going to catch on fire on a home is what's your largest landscape on a home? Your roof, right? So if you have more combustible type roof material, those embers are going to land on the roof and it's going to light it on fire. And once that roof's on fire, you're not going to be able to stop it. So what you want to do is you want to put forever roofs. Roofs that are metal or that type of material, so they are less prone to catching on fire. So that is one huge aspect. In addition to that, windows. Windows is pretty important. So if you have double or triple pane windows to be able to reflect that heat, and whenever that fire is approaching, you want to make sure and shut those windows so no fire can get inside. Those are two massive things. On top of that, when it comes to your decking material, a lot of homes out in these areas, they have beautiful decks. But if you don't use fire resistant decking material, that is just one large tinderbox to be able to catch on fire and catch on fire very easily. Secondary to that, what do we build around our homes to be able to keep unwanted predators and people out? Fences. Beautiful wooden fences. So, and what do those fences do? When, if they're dry and they're cedar, so as the fire approaches, those fences catch on fire, and then they will spread along that fence line, and your fence typically touches your home, and then eventually will catch your home on fire. And then one thing we've seen a lot of is like arborvitae and large trees, because people love to put lots of trees around their homes. Yeah. So as that shrubbery and that brush and those trees are around your home, as soon as they catch on fire, if your home's not hardened, it's going to help spread to your home.
Can I go back to the roof? Because
Yes.
I often think of, all right, so people that maybe use cedar or shingles, things like that. But asphalt is really a major problem then?
Not
when you talk about
that's
metal?
less combustible, but it's still the metal roofs, forever roofs are probably the and that's what they're doing in Detroit right now.
Okay.
I don't see any new homes right now without forever roofs on there. So, and again, I can't speak for the insurance companies, but I would think that that's what they're probably making them more often than not do, is to be able to put those forever roofs on, because if you're in an area that's more prone to wildfire, you're going to want to do that and spend the extra money to do that.
Yeah.
And in addition to that, the gutters as well. So you're talking about the roofs down into the gutters. Same thing as I mentioned earlier. You want to make sure you have the, gutters covered with meshing or something. Clean the gutters out regularly, because if the embers slide down the forever roof, the metal roof, into the gutter, and you have combustibles, you're kind of defeating the whole purpose. So again, it's in steps, right? When you're hardening one area, you want to look at the overall structure and where can it step down from here.
Well, and I love the fact that you touched on that. You talked about you need to regularly do it. Yeah. Home hardening is not just a one-time thing. It is a consistent, gradual thing you do throughout the year. Your gutters need to be looked at every year, and once they're done, if you don't want to do it every year, they make a material that you can put right over those gutters so stuff's not going inside. And remember what happens with the gutters as they fill with water, they drain, right? They drain down. So that material, as it builds up, is going to slowly drain down. So again, what you're doing is you are in not preparing those gutters and getting those gutters ready and cleaning those out, you're making yourself more susceptible to those wildfires.
Okay. Are there any municipal policies homeowners should be aware of when it comes to hardening a house, like codes or anything that they need to worry about? Or
I would say, first I would say make sure you have decent insurance coverage for and that your valuables, items inside the home have appropriate numbers put on those, right, with your insurance company. Use your agent, talk to your agent. Your agent will help you walk through that. As far as the municipality codes, things of that nature, they're varied depending on where you live.
That's correct.
And I would defer to Deputy Chief Carrara on some of that.
Well, it's as a city, we're not going to, there are certain building codes that they're going to follow, but I don't think, and to my knowledge, I'm not a fire marshal, but to my knowledge, there's no building codes that say you have to build it certain ways for wildfire protection. So that I know of, that would be something that we'd have to refer to a fire marshal to be able to elaborate on that. But there are programs that homes can actually apply to help with those if they want to basically beef up their homes and help with their homes. But I don't think there's municipality codes per se to say you have to have your home hardened in this certain way.
Okay.
Yeah, Firewise would be one. Folks can just type in Firewise on Google, what have you, and it'll take them right to a site that helps them understand home hardening, defensible space, things of that nature. So.
Okay. So let's talk a little about maybe some simple and practical steps. People maybe who are watching this right now during wildfire season, what can they do to reduce the chances of a home igniting during a nearby wildfire, especially if they can't replace their windows right now?
Or roofs. I mean,
roofs,
again, it's very expensive. So
Yeah.
Joe mentioned, again, the gutters. The gutters is paramount. And again, covering those pipes on top of your homes with some type of mesh, some type of non-burnable mesh. So a screen material would not work. So, I mean, good netting, not netting, but chicken wire and stuff like that, double up to make sure the holes are really small. That's paramount. And then when it comes to cleaning debris around your home, there's different zones. 0 to 5 feet right by your house is really, really important to make sure you have non-burning material around your home. smoldering bark dust is okay, but putting a rock or those kind of rock for a landscape material around your home, and don't have shrubs that burn really, really easily. You know, minimal amounts of shrubbery around your home to help prevent that, because if it's dry out, and in Oregon, what happens during the summer, so that's what we've had the last week, things get hot and they dry out really fast.
Yeah.
So you really got to be careful about that. And then you have another zone 5 to 30 feet out, and then that's where you want to have good. If you have grass, you want to have it low and cut grass, and you don't want to have plants that burn real easily, so they can start pushing embers to your home. And then you go from 30 to 100 feet. That's when people start having big trees, right? You got to be careful, because as those trees start to die or grow, you need to have them trimmed and make sure they're taken care of and well watered, so they don't burn as easily.
Yeah.
Walkables at the 5 to 30 foot space. You know, you can have lawn, but you can also have walkable type low foliage, things like Corsican mint. It's a great one. You can place between, stepping stones, things of that nature, right? Low, it stays green, it keeps moisture in it, a lot harder to catch fire. Ladder fuels, that's another important one. So for ladder fuels, if you have a small tree, bush, or something like that, if you notice that the branches are low to the ground or not touching the ground, just think of a ladder. You know, each branch that catches on fire is just going to step up the ladder. So trim those up, you know, get them up off the ground so they can't catch on fire as easy.
Well, and you mentioned ladder fuels. You also think about a lot of people during the summer, if they let the grass die, unless they're not going to water it, right? You want to make sure, and first of all, as it dies in the beginning of the year, get it cut short. Because one of the things that we've happened over the last few years is wildfires have started because of people cutting their lawns or cutting their grass, dry grass, right? So sparks, when they hit a rock, it causes a spark and causes a fire. And that dry grass, if it's tall, is going to spread really fast, right? So cut your grass early. If you're going to let it die, cut it early and keep it small. Secondary to that, if you are going to let it grow, water it. So, and keep it green. That green plush vegetation is not going to burn.
Okay.
So it's really, really important to you, either one or the other, but take care of it early and often and get it done and out of the way.
Okay.
And we talked about stepping down on the home, looking it over as one whole structure. Part of this, seal any gaps. Brian mentioned it earlier, seal gaps. You know, wind is dangerous for fire, and if those embers are getting pushed, imagine a nice chunk of ember that's red and hot, and it gets pushed to a gap at the lower part of the house, and that wind's blowing. Imagine blowing on when you're trying to start a campfire. It just gets hotter and hotter, and eventually it ignites. Same kind of thing. So you just have to seal those gaps. Again, it takes a little time, but believe me, it's well worth it.
Okay. So it's not just home hardening that we've mentioned here too, it's landscaping, being fire smart too. And you guys kind of touched on that, but can you explain that concept of defensible space around your home? You were talking about certain
zones, right?
Yeah.
So if you look at the last few fires we've had, right? Liberty Fire, Vita Springs Fire, we've lost one small structure on the Liberty Fire, 0 homes on both fires, and we've lost 0 lives, right? Animals and people. So what people have done, they've done a really good job, because I believe that when it comes to protecting your home, it's a two-pronged effect, right? It comes to the fire department. You call, we respond, and then comes for you preparing your homes. And homeowners have done a great job in making sure their homes are prepared. So even on the Liberty Fire, I was actively on that fire, and you saw the fire would burn the low grass right up to the home, and the homes didn't burn. So that's great, because people are doing a good job, because what they're doing is they're setting their homes up by zones, 0 to 5 feet. Remember that defensible space. They're either cutting the grass low, or keeping it short, or keeping it green, or putting rock around their homes to make sure that anything around their home is not going to burn. Right? Very, very important. And then again, you come to what they call an intermediate zone, 5 to 30 feet. You're going to have shrubs, you're going to plant plants, but keeping it green or keeping them short, so don't have those fuels that are going to catch on fire and produce those embers. Closer your home is, the more radiant heat you're going to have, the more plausible aspect of your home is probably going to catch on fire. Again, I think the homeowners in Liberty and Vita Springs have done a good job of what we wanted of preparing for defensible space. And then again, beyond that 30 feet to 100 feet, you're going to have what Joe talked about, those ladder fuels, right? Keeping those trimmed, keeping those neat, and keeping those well watered, and so they're not drying out. And if you do have trees or fuels like that are large, that are dead, get those cut down and get those out of the way. Okay. Because as soon as they're dry and they're dead, guess what's going to burn first?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So.
Deciduous trees, maple, cherry, alder, those types of hardwoods. They're more resilient. It takes more to set them on fire, especially if they're living. They're not dry, as Brian said. As far as herbaceous perennials, iris is a good one to have. Some of the others, hostas, are great.
Okay, yeah.
Again, they're lush. It's a lot harder for them. A hosta will melt before it will catch fire. It'll just kind of wilt down, which is what you would prefer versus a dry, starter. And lavender, those types of.
Lavender's okay too then.
Absolutely.
It looks great too.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
For sure.
Well, and he mentioned those additional plants, those fire-resistant plants. Another thing you can do is make sure you're spacing those plants out. Having them all bunched up together, not a great idea.
Okay.
So if you can space them out, and and like blackberry bushes, if you have it, get them out of the way because they burn, and because they're all crumpled together.
Nobody
right?
likes those, Brian.
They sadly they don't like removing them either. So but once they start, they grow and they take off, and you got to get those out of the way because they will burn. And they'll burn fast.
Okay. Okay.
So.
I was going to ask you, excuse me, about plants that were good. So, you've touched on that. Is the most important part just to make sure it's not up against the house and that it's kept at a certain level, or because a lot of people can't rip up their landscaping necessarily?
No, but keeping it low, keeping it watered, and keeping it plush. If you're going to do it, then keep it healthy. So if you're going to let it dry out, you need to get it out of the way. If you're going to let it die, get it out of the way. So that's the key: is that you can't have both, right?
Make your decision.
So if you're going to let it die, if it dies when it's grown, get it cut down, get it out of the way. But if you're going to let it die, get it cut it early, because remember, what's the busiest wildfire time of year? For us, it's August and September. So you've had 3 to 4 months of hot sun and very little water. So things are grown, dead, and large, right?
Yeah.
So that's what's going to happen is those things are going to catch on fire. Liberty, Vita Springs, and so forth. So we had a fire in 2000 during the eclipse that happened right off of Deer Park Road, and they were cutting grass. So, and we didn't lose any structures again, right? But they were cutting grass, large, tall, dead grass, and that fire spread really, really fast. That tall grass with dry grass, and that's what's going to happen. So do it early and do it often.
Okay.
And if you're thinking ahead, like you should be doing as far as your structure goes, if you're going to replace mulch or bark dust, think about small, fine, 1.3" gravel, just the real fine gravel that you can place instead of, if you're going to replace it anyway, go to something that's not as flammable, right? That's more fire resistant.
So bark dust is a problem.
Well, bark dust, what happens is when a bark dust catches on fire, it doesn't just catch on fire right there. What it'll do is it'll vein through and it'll travel, and it'll burn for days. It'll just smolder, and you'll see little puffs of smoke come up, and then you'll come back 2 days later, and it'll be burning, but it'll be underneath it, and you won't even know.
Oh, wow.
So it's really, really important that if you do have bark dust catch on fire, to be able to dig it up right then and there and get it put out.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Are there any mistakes or oversights that you've seen owners make when they're trying to harden their homes?
I wouldn't say mistakes, because we don't go back and look at homes after the fact. We've not burned any structures. So in my opinion, right now, I think homeowners are doing the best that they can with what they've been given. So not losing any structures and being able to have them be able to come back to their homes and be able to say, thank you for what you do. Well, back to them, we want to thank them for what they've done, because they've done a good job so far, but they need to continue up the work and make sure they're doing that.
Okay.
Yeah, and I would only add, have a plan, practice the plan, know your evacuation routes, know about evacuations, fire evacuations, right? Ready, set, go. It's always important. I share with people regularly that, when we issue a be ready, I'm usually ahead of that. I'm at set to go. And if it's time to be set to go, I'm probably going to err on the side of caution. Keep in mind past history, the unfortunate Riverside fire in California, folks waited a little, I don't want to ever armchair quarterback anyone, but there was a lot of, indecisiveness. If it's time to go, you need to go. You need to get in your car and go. And you can replace most everything. Valuables that you're most concerned about, your personal belongings. If you have pictures that you can't replace, put them on a flash drive and then store them somewhere else. Things like your birth certificate, Social Security card. Those important documents, have them either somewhere else in a safe deposit box at a bank, or at least in a fireproof, waterproof safe, or some type of that you can find later that's secured, things like that.
Well, and I'll touch just on that too. We try to do a really good job of notifying people early when they need to go. Things evolve on a fire rapidly, and so if you're getting a message that says level 3, go now, don't hesitate, right? Get the things and go. So when they put you at level 1 or level 2, prepare for that. But pay attention to those messages and take them seriously. If it's coming to you, it's probably not a mistake. Mm-hmm. So that's what we've had is people thought, well, sometimes a number comes across when you get a text message, you see it's coming from Scappoose, right? It's coming from us just because it says Scappoose. It's coming to you because we can directly put it in a certain vicinity. So one thing I will touch base on, you said, do people make mistakes, right? I wouldn't say it's mistakes, but lack of knowledge, right? When wildfires are happening, embers can travel quite far, right? Mm-hmm. So you need to pay attention. And if you are preparing yourself and preparing your structure because a wildfire is approaching, one thing you can do, prepare for it and do it, because just because it hasn't happened to you yet doesn't mean the neighbor might not come to you. And start wetting down your roof, wetting down the structure around you, letting those sprinklers go. Even if you want to put a sprinkler on your roof, that is not a bad idea.
I was going to ask. I've seen people do that sometimes.
100%. I saw a video of a gentleman who's building homes right now, and he is installing sprinklers because they're building homes in more wildfire-prone areas, and they're attaching sprinklers to the roofs. So all you have to do is on your, a lot of us have smartphones, right? We control our sprinklers around our yard with our smartphones. You can control the sprinklers around your yard and on top of your house by sprinklers and just installing them. I mean, you can MacGyver it pretty easily these days, right? So that's not a bad way to go.
When you talk about the evacuation levels, do people just get those on their phones? Or do you have to sign up for that in some way?
Yes, alert system. Everbridge is our notification systems, as well as Salem Polk alerts. Sign up for those. You can go online and just type in Everbridge or Salem alerts, and it will come up. It'll allow you to sign in. But yes, that's what we typically do. If we're going to issue an evacuation, we're going to do it through Everbridge normally. It's going to come out. It's going to give you clear, concise directions. Less is more. We keep it short. We hope that people will acknowledge the message by a simple yes or a Y for yes, and then they take that serious and follow the directions.
Okay.
And I would say to Brian's earlier point, you may get a number that comes across your cell phone that says Scappoose. It's all in the trunk systems that are built in the phone lines. So just because it says Scappoose, it's a legit message if it's Everbridge coming from us, City of Salem.
Okay. What resources or programs are available to get homeowners, help them get started with hardening their homes?
I got this if you
Yeah, please.
So one of the best things that is out there is neighbor associations are really, really important. Even in more wildfire-prone areas, right? I think people are more spread out. But the importance of those neighbor associations is they can sign up for grants. They can sign up for funding to be able to support their neighbors to help with the home defense and home hardening, like Firewise. Firewise is a great program, but it does take people to actually be proactive in getting on the website, getting the information, and then looking at grants and ideas for funding. Because cities like us don't have the funding and don't have the ability to be able to give the people that money. And we just don't have the staff to do it. So those wildfire prone areas where they're doing their best to home harden need to look for those grants outside of us to be able to do that. My father, who lives in Southern Oregon, who is an 85-year-old man, and he's going blind, and he can't. He owns 7 acres, and he cannot do it himself. Mm-hmm. So he was able to contact an organization who had money, grant money, that's exactly what they're doing. They're helping the people that in those areas where they need home hardening, they need that debris removal, and they came out and they removed all of the dangerous trees on his 7 acres of land for him, and they didn't cost him a dime, and it was done through grants. So looking for that and using the internet and using those tools, and the neighbor associations are really, really good because typically they can ask for funds that homeowners can't.
Okay.
So, but Firewise is a really good program to start with.
Okay. Is there anything else you believe is important for owners to know about house hardening and wildfire safety in general?
Yeah, I would say just take it serious. Mm-hmm. And if you're not sure, reach out to our department.
Mm-hmm.
We're happy to at least if nothing else, talk to you and direct you to the Fireways program, other programs. I try to get out as much as possible to the neighborhoods association meetings, especially in the summer, and do public education on wildfire, emergency preparedness, all those types of things.
On top of that, I think, we mentioned that be prepared, right?
Yeah.
You don't think it's going to happen to you until it does, right? We're never actually prepared for what's going to happen like that. But it is be prepared, especially when we get towards fire season. I mean, and we average about 37, even small fires every day, right? Last week we had 61. So it's getting busier, and they're even bark dust fires it's just happening. So it's going to happen. Wildfires we're more prone to it nowadays because the heat is excessive, right? So as we dry out, so be prepared. On top of that, have fire extinguishers, have access to water, have access to hoses. Have your house ready to go so you can prevent those wildfires in your homes from burning down. The communities have done a really good job so far. Let's keep that work up and keep on paying attention to what they need to do so we can help them make sure that their homes are standing when wildfires do happen.
Okay. Well, Deputy Chief Brian Carrara and also Joe Hutchinson, City of Salem Emergency Management, thank you so much for coming in to talk to us about this important topic today.
I appreciate
thank
it.
you.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Wildfires are inevitable, but community destruction is not. Home hardening, especially in those transition zones between unpopulated and developed areas, is a smart way to lower risk of home ignition. And a lot of what we heard today, especially in regard to defensible areas, can be practiced as good fire safety regardless of where you live. Be safe this fire season, and remember, our community matters. We'll see you next time.